up to the neck, and that's what I'd rather suffer than continue some of this sloppy management. People do not consider other people's money, because that's right, this money is brought in. This is other people's money that is being managed. It's not your money or the employee's money. It's our money, and I don't think it's being handled as our money. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from those who have not spoken? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Anne Luget, and I live on Warwick Road. And I just have a small comment to make about a revenue-generating idea for the town. That in Massachusetts, the Supreme Judicial Court ruled that municipalities can charge utilities to rent for the space that they use for telephone poles, for other things that they use. And I realize in Belmont that we have our own electric utilities, so presumably we wouldn't charge ourselves. But in an effort to try and find ways that we can bring revenues to the town, that's a small idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes, sir, on my left.
Hello, my name is Arvidas Matskavicius. I live on Chilton Street. I did vote for the roads override, and I would support the Wellington debt exclusion. But as somebody who has supported a lot of efforts for the schools over the years, and really that's been the focus of my involvement with things, I think my degree of concern about what's happening with the oversight of the schools is a warning sign that I think of a certain concern of trust in what is happening. I should say that I have enormous personal respect for those who are serving and have served on school committee. I respect their intelligence and their commitment, and I know that they work very, very hard. They're very busy people, but they work very hard for the benefit of our kids, and I tremendously appreciate that. But I'm afraid that the role that they have been playing increasingly and dramatically is more of a lobbying arm or a public relations arm for the top administrators in the school department instead of as an oversight function. And I understand that it's a volunteer board and they don't have the expertise to manage things in a great level of detail, but from my experience, this whole thing that has happened with the pay and pension increases was really a symptom and an example of a pattern of a problem, and not the only problem in isolation. And I think there are a number of things in terms of more detailed review of budget items that are important, but I think that if somebody like me who has been supporting efforts related to the schools is so concerned about what is happening, then I really think that's something people should worry about. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Was there? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Peggy Eisenbach, and I live on Washington Street. And I don't share those sentiments, because my experience with the school department has been that I've actually seen a lot of prudent management. And one of my concerns in terms of the overrides, the sequencing, and first off I want to just say thank you to all of you who have volunteered. I think people have been pretty darn thoughtful, and I realize that you put a lot of effort into this, and we have too many needs, quite frankly. One of my concerns was the sequencing, because what I fear is the operational override may be jeopardized, be jeopardized by the other overrides, and they're all, important needs, I recognize. I'm a little fearful of what has happened in Medford recently is going to happen in Belmont, in that if we can't meet the budget, the kinds of cuts that will happen will affect the service infrastructure. And while it's not considered a capital budget, in some ways an ephemeral thing like a school department, the teachers really are the infrastructure. And I fear the cutting of those and what that does to the quality of education that is very difficult to fill, just as it's difficult to fix a road by just filling potholes. So thank you.
Thank you. Ann?
Ann Mann, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 4. I too want to thank everybody here, the Warrant Committee, the Board of Selectmen, Tom Younger. They have done a terrific job, and I think that a lot of people don't recognize it unless they do go to the meetings and see all of the work that they do. And it's not just at the meetings, but it's all the preparation beforehand. I do want to mention, having attended the last few school committee meetings, that there have been some articles in the paper that say that we're going to be spending more next year than this year, but as far as I can tell from the last meetings, we will not be doing that, and I believe that if that ends up being the case, it seems like there's a misunderstanding for the citizens of the town. If that ends up that we do spend less next year, I would hope that the Board of Selectmen, the Warrant Committee, and the newspaper might admit that to the public so that it doesn't look as though things are as bad as it has been led to believe. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes, sir.
So, Robert Banks, I live in Country Club Lane. Sorry to say that I don't want to stand here and criticize anybody for the work that's been done, because it's certainly been a lot of work. I guess I have some questions, though. So the questions I have relate to the vision, that we have of Belmont in general, and then whether or not there is any kind of, I heard reference to a long-range plan, specifically on the capital plan, but is there, a long-range plan the way a corporation might put together a plan, a 3 to 5 year plan that aligns to what our vision of the town is, which will help set the priorities and baseline everybody in the town as to what those are. And as we progress over time and the assumptions in the 5 and 3 year plan change, revenue, operational requirements, capital improvements, and so forth, we can adjust, because it just seems to me that, you never know where you're going unless you can measure, your path to where you're going. So just really those two questions.
Thank you. Other comments? Our State Representative?
Thank you. First, I'd just like to say I think you guys are doing a great thing by having this forum, and I think it's the right thing to be doing. Having been a selectman and having sort of observed a lot of people in the role of selectmen, people that predate, people that came before me, people on the Warrant Committee, two things I can attest to. One is all of them, including those with whom I've disagreed violently and campaigned against, always had the best interests of the town at heart. And there was not a single person that served in a role in leadership of this town that I doubted their public spirit and motivation. And I also think it's also important to say that all of them had a sharp sense that the money that they were spending, when they were spending money, was the taxpayers' money. And while I think if you go around the community, there are always mistakes that have been made, the spirit of what I've seen go on in this town government, for all of my involvement in it, has been one of spending money as carefully as possible. So I commend everybody here that's identifying things that could be different, and I think the Board of Selectmen needs to consider all of those things. But I think it's important to make a statement about the kind of people that are serving in the leadership of this government, and I include everybody that I've served with. I'd also like to say that the town employees in this community are, and I have this as a strong impression, by and large, a very high caliber, and
Again, there are always things that they could do better, but from the highway department to the communities and development department to the police department to the fire department to the school department, you have a lot of people of very high caliber that are doing as best as they can within a limited structure. And so this is a constant struggle. It started long before I was on the board. It's continuing as I now see, to how to meet the town's needs with limited resources. And it can't exactly be done within the box and framework that we're in. One thing, and I just want to mention something that is a constant conversation, is the issue of regionalization. Can we, by associating ourselves into larger units for the delivery of services, achieve economies of scale that we can't achieve within the framework that we have today? I mean, can we, if we combine police departments, fire departments, 911, if we share curriculum development with other school systems through technology, how do we get to that? And it's something that, again, a conversation that started before I got on the board and while I was on the board, and we really weren't able to make huge progress on it, although there are a lot more things that people, that the town has done to regionalize than people are aware of. There's a lot of sort of sub-functions that have been regionalized. Tomorrow, in Lexington Center, at the Lexington Depot, the railroad station in Lexington Center, the Committee on Municipalities and Regional Government of the state legislature is conducting a hearing on regionalization at 10 a.m. And it's a hard time for a lot of people to make, but it's sort of a day hearing because it's intended to include a lot of the professionals that are involved. And hopefully that will, our goal in asking for that hearing is to create a conversation and sort of foster that longer-term conversation, identify ways that the state can help, because I think it's very, very difficult for town government to do any better than it's doing with the resources that it has in the structure that it has. So the question is, can you change that structure in a big way? And that's one of the conversations I know all the people at this table in front of you have been interested in for a long time. We're trying to facilitate that in the longer term way. So that's tomorrow, Lexington, 10 a.m., the Lexington Depot in Lexington Center. Thank you.
Thank you. One or two more comments. I promise to recognize you again, this gentleman, but those who haven't spoken, anybody? So.
I'm Mario Arl.
Can you go to the microphone? Thank you.
Excuse me. As I introduced myself before, I'm Mario Arl. I live on School Street. I came to this country 51 years ago from the land of the pharaohs, where they built the pyramids. They have been built 41 centuries ago. They are still standing. The library is only 40 years old, and you want to tear it down. I speak about the library because in June of 2005, the library made a presentation. It had an architect there with a couple of renderings, and they, or he, were trying to sell us on the new library, on the need for a new library. The library had produced figures which I challenge. Supposedly, there was 1,000 persons on the average per day going to the library. This I strongly challenge. When I started asking questions about, he claimed we were going to have an underground garage. I said, and how about the brook that goes under the library? You forgot it? Oh, we have taken care of that, we have taken care of that. I started asking specific questions. My background is engineering from MIT, and I grew up in a family of architects. My father was an architect, my brother was an architect, my uncle was an architect. So I know a little bit about architecture and about the sense of buildings and what can be done, what cannot be done. When I started asking questions, therefore, the personnel of the library who was there jumped on me and shut me up. Very democratic. The other question is the steps on the library. Oh, before going to that, that was in June, the presentation was in June of 2005. In the July 22nd, I believe, issue of the Citizen, I wrote an article about that. At that time, the Watertown Library was adding another building to their old library. They were not tearing it down, they preserved it. And today, if you have a minute, to go on Main Street, next to their fire station, you can witness a beautiful addition made to the old Watertown Library that is still standing there. The two together, it's a beautiful combined building. So in July, I wrote an article in the Citizen asking or wondering why don't we add, same as Watertown, add an addition to our existing library in what is that small skating rink. And it stood there. Why the steps on the library have been condemned? Because I think one strategy of the town to justify a new building is to let an existing building fall apart, go decrepit, and say, you see, it would be too expensive to repair it. So it's less expensive to tear it down and build something new. This is why the steps of the library have been locked up. They are well preserved now, but one day will come when they will disappear if, God forbid, we'll tear down the existing library, which is only 40 years old. The other question I had was I was going to ask you if you knew what time and motion study is. Time and motion study is done in offices, is done in factories, is done almost everywhere to justify personnel. The question I have is directly addressed to the electrical department. I usually go to pay my bill to the department, the new building department, electrical. And there used to be two ladies, very nice ladies, who apparently retired. And now when I go, I'm surprised to be met by 5 people in the same location. Why have they grown from 2 to 5? Okay? Can you explain that? And maybe has that same philosophy been adopted in other departments as well? So we are looking at big government.
Okay.
And this is why we have increased expenses, money which could go to the running of the town. And I think that in a year or so, we expect to have another override, not for the roads, but you can be sure that I will vote against it unless the town shows between now and then that it has acted, not that it will, that it has done something positive to reduce those expenses.
Great,
and
thank
I fully approve.
Thank you very much.
I haven't finished.
I understand, but I've let you speak twice, and there is a time limit, so
That's
can
fine.
you just bring it to an end?
That's fine,
Thank you.
but I approve fully what this gentleman here said about bringing UPS to, to make a time and motion study, which is nothing more than what I just said. And I would not be surprised if the personnel of the town, of the city of the town, would be reduced by, all the superfluous personnel would disappear, and the personnel who would be left would really be working. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Anybody who would like to speak who has not spoken? Okay, Donald, 1 minute, please.
Okay, the first one, this has been brought up before. I think there should be a real forceful effort to bring the town and the school departments together to run the real estate. As I mentioned before, an educator is not qualified to run a piece of real estate. And if we did that, we might also be able to bring in somebody of lots superior knowledge and capability to manage the real estate. It is letting go all the time. When you talk about the schools and the school teachers, so you want to really talk about the teachers' salaries. Go to the private schools and see what they get for salaries, and then compare it to what you're paying. This goes back to the point where you could tell the school department, we're not going to approve your budget. That doesn't mean the town meeting won't, but you could mention that. This fellow talked on the library stairs. I'm the one who made the motion to not do those library stairs over for this one simple reason. It cost $150,000 to do those stairs, and let me tell you, I would like to have that contract. And I got a builder's license to do that, so the town decided not to do the stairs for that reason.
Thank you, Donald. One last time, anybody who hasn't spoken who would like to make a comment? I'm going to ask the Chairman Frenzy to sort of summarize and explain next steps. But let me personally thank all of you for coming tonight and for making the effort to share your feelings, your sentiments, your ideas. I think this is a very important thing, and I think it would be a good idea to institutionalize this in some fashion. So thank you all. Chairman Frenzy.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you all for attending. It was very interesting to be sitting there listening and fighting off the urge to jump up and respond to some of the things that we heard. I think that one of the things that clearly came out of this meeting is that we as a town need to be doing a much better job of communicating. What I saw and what I was tending to respond to or thinking about is that there's a little bit of information out there, and then that gets expanded and conclusions get drawn, which are, I think, in many cases not correct ones. I'm not sure how to correct that. I know that I've spent hours talking with Dana about some of the issues that he raised tonight, and I have not been successful in convincing him of what's going on, so I'm not sure that additional communication is necessarily going to help. But what I would do is invite anybody that has any questions about any of the issues that are out there to pick up the phone. My number's in the book. I'll meet you anytime. We can sit down and talk about what the issues are and what we are to deal with. The idea of UPS is one that is an interesting one. I mean, I've run a company. I had one union to deal with. It was very easy by comparison to running a town where there are over 10 unions to deal with. And when you get a lot of help from the state, a lot of the things that we talked about, health insurance and some of the other issues, there are requirements that tie the hands of local town officials that don't allow us to do many of the things that instinctively we would like to be able to do. The concept of combining departments between school and town. I read a report that was dated 1995 where those recommendations were made. 1985 where those recommendations were made. And we've made a little progress in being able to correct that. And there's a lot of reasons for it. And I think one of the things that concerns me a little bit is that after being a selectman for 4 years, I start to understand why some of these things don't happen. And that's a little bit frustrating as well, because that doesn't mean that they shouldn't happen. It just means I understand why they haven't happened. We can just continue chipping away at them and continue working on them. I appreciate Representative Brownsberger's comments. I share them. I feel very strongly that we have a tremendous number of dedicated employees in this town. Let me just give you an example of one thing, and this is a conversation that I had with Mr. Castanino. And this goes back about a year ago. I happened to be driving up Common Street, a beautiful summer morning, And there was a town truck in front of me, and there were 2 employees in the town truck, and as they drove up the street, there was a trash bag on the side of the road. Little Shaw's plastic trash bag that somebody had heaved out the window. And the truck drove right by it and just kept going. And I was a little bit frustrated by that. And I said, gee, wouldn't it have been nice if the truck had stopped, the guy jumped out, picked up the bag, threw it in the back of the truck, and just kept going? And wouldn't that give the kind of impression as a community we'd like to see? And Peter's response was one I didn't quite expect, but after I thought about it, understood. He said, Angelo, that would have been nice. He said, but you know what would have happened if that truck stopped? He says, my phone would have been ringing off the hook with people calling, asking, why did we send a truck with 2 people to pick up a trash bag on the side of the road? There's a message in there. I'm not sure what it is, but I certainly understand the sentiments, and I could assure you he would have gotten that phone call. All we can do is continue to listen. I love the idea of this forum. Maybe in the next version we might allow a little bit more give and take, because I really would have liked the opportunity to respond to a lot of the comments out there and to fill in some of the details as to why things that look so obvious to happen don't happen. There are, I can assure you, legitimate reasons as to why that's the case. But we could just keep working, just keep chipping away at the problems and the issues. And I can assure you that's what we'll be doing. So I want to, again, thank you very much for being here. Thanks for your attention. We heard every comment that was made, and I'm not sure how to respond to the individual ones. Anybody that had any comment that would like to talk to us about those things, I would be happy to talk with them about it personally, as I'm sure Dan or Ralph or Tom or anybody else in the community, Peter or Glenn, would be willing to do that. So thank you very much for being here.
Before you guys all get up and leave here, I'm Phil Curtis, Chair of the Warrant Committee, and I just want to put in a plug for public service. So all of you have expressed your ideas. If you think the school committee could use a little more diversity, and I happen to agree with you, run for school committee. If you think the Warrant Committee could use some more help, and we surely could, send your resume to Mike Widmer. Say you'd like to get involved. The Warrant Committee doesn't pay anything, and it's a lot of work, but we need people. We need guys like you, women like you. We need more people helping us out to make the decisions for the town. We need divergent opinions. And so I would really welcome anyone in this audience to get further involved. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you all very much.
Mike.